Folks, let me explain about these ghost town subdivisions. Then I'll get into the latest home prices and insights for the Peel and Durham region for week ending October 15th, 2025. If you want to speak directly with me about your real estate situation, selling, buying, it's really simple. Below this video in the description, there's a link to my calendar. Click on that, book a time that's convenient for you, and we'll talk about whatever's on your mind. My wife and I were driving out in the country. We were way out. We were about an hour or so north of the GTA, northwest of the GTA. There was farmland everywhere. That's all we were seeing. Not little tiny farms, big open spaces of farmland. And from time to time, we'd pass a little town, and then again, farmland. We're passing this one town, and as we get past the town, out of nowhere, like it snuck up on us, was this big subdivision of brand new homes. And my wife and I look at this. Now, my wife and I are both realtors, so we're looking at it from that perspective. And I'm thinking, we're way out of the GTA. We're more than an hour's drive out. This little town has a subdivision right next to it of brand new homes. These were all detached homes. We pulled off the main road and drove through the subdivision. These were big homes, lots of them, but also lots of for sale signs. And as we started driving through, this subdivision is bigger than the town that it's connected to. You can drive out west of Mississauga, northwest of Mississauga and Brampton, north of Brampton. You can drive out 45 minutes, an hour, hour and a half, and you will come across little towns that maybe you don't even know the names of these towns. And right next to the town or behind the town, it kind of sneaks up on you. You wouldn't expect it. There's these massive, newer subdivisions. And you could easily think, how'd these get here? What's going on? Who would come out and live out here? Well, you got to think with the mentality of then. Not now, but then. Back then, when we were all told to stay home, and then real estate prices just went through the roof here in GTA, and interest rates were basically for free, giving money. The banks were basically giving money away. That's how low interest rates were. People were opting to buy outside. And they were okay buying outside because for the same amount of money, they could get, in many of these areas, double the size of home that they can get here in the GTA for the same amount of money or much, much less. And they didn't have to drive into work every day. So a ton of these towns, builders bought up these huge farmlands and built subdivisions bigger than the actual towns. I think the question to ask is not how did they get there, but what are they going to do now? Because when you drive through these things, it's a bit of an eerie feeling when you drive through these subdivisions. What we saw, a ton of for sale signs, almost nobody, very few people. And when you look at these homes later on that evening, and I looked it up on my computer, this town and the properties for sale, these are homes on the market, 100 days, 150 days. These are 3,000, 2,700, 3,500, 4,000 square foot homes. And when you look through the photo, basic finishes, nothing exciting on the inside other than big. They're big, monster detached homes in the middle of nowhere. And now what? What's going to happen? What's bringing the population to go out there and buy? Somebody who has this for sale is selling it for a certain reason. What's attracting somebody to move out there and buy? This is something that many towns are struggling with, that have to deal with. This is not necessarily a GTA problem. If it was just about the price, phenomenal deals out there. Go buy. Why aren't people rushing out to buy? Because there's more to it than just the value of the house. And these towns are struggling right now with massive subdivisions, bigger than their towns itself, and nobody's moving out there to buy. If you think this video can help somebody you know, pass it along. And if you get value from what we're talking about, subscribe. Now, let's get into the numbers. Here we go, folks. Peel and Durham region. We're going to be focused on the detached market only. So detached properties for Mississauga, for Brampton, and for Durham. For Durham, I'm using Pickering, Ajax, and Whitby as my Durham sample. And again, only detached properties. Durham and Brampton typically have a similar average sold price. 1 week one's higher, 1 week the other one's higher. But Mississauga is almost always way up here. The difference between Durham and Brampton prices versus where average prices are for Mississauga, it's $350,000 difference in average sold price. We're going to start off with Mississauga. Week ending October 15th, 32 detached properties were sold. 4 of those sold at $2 million or more. So sales kind of look like they're trending down. Look, once we hit September, sales typically each year tend to trend up, and then at some point they turn, and we see fewer sales each week headed to the end of the year. But we also just finished Thanksgiving, so it's hard for me to say if those fewer sales are because of Thanksgiving or because we've started the turn towards the end of the year. Average sold price sitting at $1,406,000. It all depends how you look at the average sold price, whether you're thinking average sold price is up or down. Let me explain. If we look at just the fall market, well, it's pretty clear. Average sold price looks like it's trending up. But if we go back to the beginning of the summer, average sold price kind of looks like it may be trending down. Depends on how far back you want to go. Compared to last year, however, if we just compare this week to the same week a year ago, average sold price of $1,406,000 is 4% lower. The median price of $1,231,000 is 9% lower. The dotted lines here, that's a 4-week moving average. The median kind of doesn't look like there's much movement. It's kind of flat. The average sold price, when we look at the 4-week moving average, kind of looks like it's trending down. Sales, 32 were sold, 13% sold at list price or more, and that percentage is sloping down. But let's look at year-to-date sales. Lots of people, lots of conversations out there. Depends on who you speak with, but there's people that'll say we're seeing so many fewer sales this year versus last year. Well, let me tell you exactly what it is for Mississauga detached properties. January 1st to October 15th, we are seeing a 246 fewer sales this year versus a year ago, the same period. That's a 13% difference in sales, in volume. Most industries, 13% would be significant. Listings, we're seeing fewer listings. And when we look at active listings, it's not a big change over the fall period. There's currently 987 available detached properties available for sale across Mississauga. Well, for week ending October 15th, 3.2% of those actually sold. So 3%, there's 100 for sale. only 3 are actually going to sell that week. Months of inventory has climbed. We're now at 7.1 months of inventory. Here's Brampton. Sales really hasn't changed much. 53 detached properties were sold. No property sold at $2 million or more. Average sold price way down from the previous, from basically any time in the fall. We're now at $1,025,000 average sold price. If we go back to the beginning of the year or any other time in between, average sold price basically trending down in Brampton for detached properties. $1,025,000 is 12% lower than the same week a year ago. The median price of $960,000 is also 12% lower. When we look at sales, only 9% sold at list price or more. Year to date, 291 fewer sales, which is 13% fewer sales. So same as Mississauga, 13% fewer sales this year to date, versus last year. Listings, fewer listings, but Brampton has a higher percentage sold. 4.3% of available listings actually sold. And active listings is trending down in Brampton. Months of inventory sitting at 5.4 months of inventory. Brampton used to be 6-7 months of inventory. Now we're at 5.4. Here's Pickering, Ajax, and Whitby, my Durham sample. For week ending October 15th, 43 detached properties were sold. Previous week we had fewer sales, but 43 brings it kind of back up. So maybe there's no significant change in sales yet. One of those sold at $2 million or more. Average sold price has been climbing the last few weeks. It's now at $1,067,000. $1,067,000 is 5% lower than the same week a year ago. The median price of $975,000 is 12% lower. Year-to-date sales, 194 fewer sales, which is 9.3% fewer sales this year than last year. Fewer listings, 6.3% of all available properties for sale for detached properties actually sold. So Durham, when it comes to that percentage, Pickering, Ajax, and Whitby is outperforming Mississauga and Brampton with respect to the percentage of properties available for sale actually selling. And months of inventory, the lowest we see in all areas around, we're sitting at 3.6 months of inventory, or one of the lowest, let me say, as far as large regions go. Here's a quick summary. When we compare months of inventory this year versus last year, well, Mississauga last year was 3.8, we're now 7.1. Brampton 4.3, 5.4. Pickering, Ajax, Whitby here, 3.3, 3.6, not a big change. Big change in condos, though, 6.6, we're now at 11.9. Pretty much you're going to experience, if you're shopping for a detached properties or you're selling a detached properties in Mississauga, Brampton, or Ajax, Pickering, and Whitby, depending on price point, depending on area, depending on condition of the home, you can experience either a balanced market or a buyer's market. Thanks for watching. Have an awesome day.